Welcome to Comics League. I'm Jared, and I got a really good one in mind for you guys today. So my good friend Raul Ryan recommended this topic, so I figured, you know what, I'll make a video about this. I've covered this particular comic like debate and topic for a while, ever since like the inception of this channel too. So this will be a nice little return to form, a little break from the Snyder stuff. I'm going to cover why Superman and Wonder Woman work as a couple. You guys got a little taste of this during the Snyder Cut live stream where myself and Snyder Queen got pretty heated. By the way, the arm is back in action, baby. So now I broke this down into five sections, really, four of which are dealing with actually really there are five reasons why I think that they work. And actually, I'm going to get out the comic that I have if my action figures won't stop falling down. But I have Super Wonder, the Power Couple arc. That's the one from the New 52. And in that arc, you had essentially Clark and Diana dealing with really the fallout of them being a couple. Actually, I'm going to put them up here so that it's a nice little background for my video. That's what I might start doing now, is having action figures or stuff in the background right here. If these guys can stand up, let's do this. So anyway, going to the video. So on why these two work as a couple. First off is compatibility. Now I'm going to talk about compatibility in essentially two different ways. Yeah, genetically they are compatible. They can have children, which we have seen in many different, in any arc that they have been together. Case in point, Kingdom Come. They have a kid. And that kid grows up to be Hyperman. Then you have, I don't count Act of God, because if we're going on the thing that they can't because they're both superpowered, they lose their superpowers in that story. But if we go to essentially, there was this other storyline that I remember called, Dark Knight Returns. They have two children, John and Lara. So genetically they're compatible. There's an objective fact. Now, as it applies to actually like personality wise, obviously they are compatible because they're pretty much like, she's the female version of him. She's strong. They're both strong, but they're both like compassionate. They're both sort of stand for hope in their own way. Now, what's interesting about these two, and going to compatibility, and this in the Power Couple arc, in fact, goes into this really well, and actually throughout the New 52 when they were a couple, the way they address it is, so for one thing, Diana does not have a no-kill rule. And Superman in this thing, he's not as comfortable with killing as Diana is. And that said, where in Trinity War, there was this one point where Diana goes, okay, so they lock up Despero, and Diana goes, he's just going to break out again, Clark. There's a reason why my list of supervillains is not as large as yours or Bruce or Barry's. And he goes, well, and she goes, because when I deal with a threat, I deal with it. And that's kind of put some tension in there. And it's also really, Clark is used to having a secret identity, and he's used to having to hide part of himself from the world. Diana is not. She's pretty much Wonder Woman all the time. And she even says so in Throne of Atlantis, the issue where they go on a date, and it's like, she asks Clark why the whole secret identity thing actually works. And he says, because they don't really think that we could have a life outside of the Justice League. They think it's just Superman and Wonder Woman all the time. And she goes, it is for me. So there's that. And it's also really, she's used to embracing every part of oneself. And that's where I think she's good for Clark, because Clark has grown up having to really not necessarily embrace his Kryptonian heritage, but having to like say, you're a human only. And really, that's a big disservice to Clark, because he is ultimately Kryptonian. And I feel like having that influence really does, like, I think, contribute to his development as a superhero. So that's compatibility. completeness, and that's also completeness too, because it allows him to be more of a complete human being, more complete superhero, because he's encouraged to embrace not only the human but also the Kryptonian. Because I think that's the problem with the Lois Lane thing. That's one of the chief problems, because with the Lois Lane thing, he's encouraged to see himself only as a human, where he's not only a human, he's a Kryptonian. And you could, and here's the thing: he doesn't need that whole thing about how he needs her to act like a human anchor, otherwise he loses his humanity. No, that wouldn't work. That's not the way it works. Because here's why: he has always had that human anchor because he was raised by the Kents. So, and this was also indicated in Power Couple. It's partly why I love that issue so much, that volume, because it was this one point after Superman savagely beats the crap out of the Greek god Apollo in one of the coolest moments in the entire comic. He gets supercharged with solar radiation, and he starts shaking. So he kind of wants to like go somewhere, calm down. So then Bruce calls and he goes, "Dude, I see you on the moon. What the hell happened?" Clark explains the whole storyline, the whole story, and then Bruce, and then they have a conversation about their limits. And Bruce tells Clark, "There's a reason why I've always felt relatively comfortable working with you over everyone else. It's because, yes, you have these powers. I know this is in the New 52. Yes, you have these fantastical powers, Clark. No one doubts that. But you were raised human. No matter what, you will always see mankind as your home team." In other words, Clark already has that human like connection. And I think that's super like that's a disservice to the character, I think, to say that if he loses if he's not with Lois, all of a sudden he becomes like a dictator. That worked in Injustice, because guess what? It wasn't just the losing of Lois. I know I'm going to put this, I'm going to phrase it this way. So take Injustice. Yes, he lost Lois Lane, but it was also a nuke that went off and killed Metropolis too. It was those two things together. If he had just lost Lois, I think he would have been fine. He would have mourned. It would have been fine. Case in point, I actually have another storyline that actually applies that. Let me see if it's easily within reach. Okay, no, it's not. But okay. I'm just checking real quick, because this is a very important storyline that I think really applies. Okay, yeah, here it is. So, DC Universe Online Legends. This was the comic book series that's basically based around the DC massive multiplayer online game. Now, in this comic, Superman himself accidentally kills Lois Lane. Yes, he goes away and broods for a second because he has to essentially mourn. But guess what? He gets right back on the horse and and stays as a superhero. So that's why I think he doesn't necessarily need to be with Lois Lane to have that human connection, because it's done. They've done storylines where he's lost the human connection but has remained true to who he is. I think it's too much of a simplistic view on Superman to say that he needs Lois Lane specifically. He needs to be in a relationship with a human. So that's where I'll go on to that. And then interesting storylines, because we have the storyline where I'm just putting this graphic novel away. We have the storyline where honestly Wonder Woman becomes the god of war, and that puts honestly some tension in between the two, because what's cool about that is because Superman thinks that when you're the god of war, you like get your power from war itself, and that you're very like you need war to like survive, or like you profit off of war. So that puts a little bit of a like tension in the relationship. Although here's the thing, they did in Power Couple, they did that, and Clark was cool with it. In the last volume, Clark was not okay with it, and that's because they changed writers, and then the next writer, P.J. Tomasi, completely sabotaged that relationship because he was a fan of Superman with Lois, which that's fine. You can have your own preference, but don't like completely tank what's come before. But that's besides the point. But my point is that it provides a little bit more of what some people think is that Superman with Lois, okay, Superman with Wonder Woman, that's very like simplistic, and it just leads to like boring ass stories. Nope, doesn't. That same argument that's the same argument as people that say Superman himself does not have any interesting storylines, and we all know that's not true, because you have Power Couple where she fights General Zod and Feora for him, And they essentially have this fantastic moment where Superman essentially goes to Wonder Woman before they go to the final battle. He goes, we're about to fight the Kryptonians, and all I could think about is protecting you. Do you think we were better superheroes before we were a couple? And she goes, no, because if I thought that, we wouldn't be together. And then it turns out they need each other to like save the day because they have to like detonate a nuclear reactor. So so her sword can like pierce an atom, but she needs Superman's supervision to be able to see the atom. So so they need each other. And then honestly, Clark also helps Diana learn more about man's world because guess what? Okay, how was Diana raised? Diana was raised in a society that sees men as hostile, men as evil, men as people that will betray you. Superman is the complete opposite of that. So what that shows is, guess what? Not all men are the same, are that way. Steve Trevor is, to a certain degree. Steve Trevor is what mankind was, of what Steve Trevor, to a certain degree, is what Diana was taught men are. Clark is not. In no way is Clark. That is truly one of the key points, and why I think Wonder Woman has always been depicted as being in love with Superman, because that's she again, complete opposite of what she typically thinks man's world like. He challenges her conceptions of what a man is. And then another interesting storyline: Kingdom Come, because in the sequel, The Kingdom, they have the kid. They go on a multiverse journey to save their child who was taken by Magog. Then we also have Act of God, where we see what happens when the Justice League are stripped of their powers, and then Superman and Wonder Woman bond over this mutual loss. Then you have Throne of Atlantis, where he's teaching her how to be a normal human being. He takes her to Smallville and like tells her, "This is why I'm Superman." And I thought I could. And this is he's basically telling her he teaches her there's life other than being Wonder Woman. You can have your own individual life instead of being the superhero 24/7. And let me see, what's another really good storyline that I know that, Superman Doomed, where Superman is turning into Doomsday, and Wonder Woman honestly has to choose between killing the man she loves or letting him destroy worlds, because currently he's essentially under control of Doomsday. And if she doesn't kill him, then the world suffers. She doesn't, obviously, and they save each, and essentially he's able to regain control. And then let's see. I know there's so many that are honestly really good that it's oftentimes hard to hammer down one specific storyline that I think is like the best. Besides the Superman Wonder Woman series done by Charles Soule and Tony S. Daniel, they really define that relationship, because in the New 52, that's when they actually, in the canon universe, were together. And that was the first time they actually had a comic book series that explores what that would look like. That's an interesting storyline. And then for the history, it's showing that at a certain point, it was the plan for Wonder Woman to replace Lois Lane as Superman's love interest. So that's an interesting fact to people that say, oh, no, she was always supposed to be with Batman. No, she wasn't. In fact, DC has said multiple times that's never going to happen. So there you go. And it's like, historically, speaking of genetic compatibility, I believe Superman's the only Justice League member to ever have gotten Wonder Woman pregnant. So there you go. And in terms of, really, they've always written it like they have had mutual feelings for each other, but couldn't pursue it because of Lois Lane, or they didn't feel like it would work out that well. Going back to the Silver Age, then here's another storyline I forgot, called Immortal Beloved. It's when Wonder Woman is going to fight in Asgard for 1,000 years, and Superman goes with her, and they think that so Lois Lane as far as they know, Lois Lane is dead. My problem with that storyline is that, so they know that she's dead, but Clark is like, it'll always be Lois Lane, and I'm like, but she's dead. It doesn't work. But the ending doesn't work. I've read fanfics that have actually fixed that storyline, and it's so much better. Shout out to Night Sky. And but yeah, that's my one problem with the storyline, is the ending. But besides that, it's really cool. And that's really that's the history. And I went into some fun facts, but that's really where I'm going to leave it on this one, because I don't want to go too long on this. It's not really a podcast episode, but I hope you guys enjoyed this topic, and drop in the comments if you agree with my arguments. And Tavia, I know you're going to talk about the Super Sons. Having Superman with Wonder Woman in no way impacts the Super Sons. You could just have John Kent be Superman and Wonder Woman's kid, and that'd actually be very interesting having two super parents. But that's all I'm going to say about that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Stay heroic, everyone. Bye bye.